We got the order in early November of 2012, dropped on us without warning, without a briefing, without even the courtesy of an explanation. Just a blunt directed to gear up and move before sunrise. Lieutenant Harlow gathered us in the motor pool. The pre-dawn darkness pressed tight around us while he flattened a map across the hood of a Humvee. A lone flashlight trembled in his hand, its beam carving a small island of white across the creased paper. "We're tracking a missing shipment," he said, dragging a finger across the Harrat al-Sham lava fields, his jaw clenched like he was biting down on something bitter. 40-foot container dropped off a convoy 3 days ago. Command wants it located before the sun comes up. Corporal Delaney, bricks to the rest of us, leaned in, squinting. "Sir, 3 days? Why are we only hearing about this now?" Harlow didn't even glance up. "It's outside our jurisdiction. We find it, we secure it, we report it. That's the job." But the stiffness in his shoulders told me there was more to it than he'd ever admit. They tell you that after enough deployments, you learn to read the signs, the little involuntary gestures officers make when they're holding back the things they're not allowed to say aloud. We rolled out at 0430. 4 Humvees, 12 men, the engines growling as we crawled toward the unbroken wasteland ahead of us. The herd isn't a desert in the way most people imagine. No dunes, no rolling seas of sand. It's a dead world of ancient basalt, the deads of off broken, and flying along the porcher, laughing faced with poison. Under moonlight, it looked alien, like we'd driven off the edge of the map and onto another planet. Specialist Alvarez sat beside me, his fingers tapping restlessly against his rifle grip as he stared out into that eerie landscape. "Something's off," he muttered. "Every one of these cargo units has GPS redundancy. A container can't just vanish." I didn't answer. I've been thinking the same thing. In 2012, losing a 40-foot metal box in wide-open terrain wasn't something that just happened. We kept driving as the sun bled over the horizon. The black stone turned deep red, then rust-colored, then the painful white glare that hits like a hammer, even through ballistic sunglasses. Heat rose in waves, pressing against the vehicles, baking everything it touched. By 0700, the temperature had already spiked to 95. In the back seat, Private Briggs leaned forward, sweating through his uniform. "Sarge, how big is this thing again?" "Standard 40-footer, I said. "You'll know it when you see it." "If we see it," Briggs muttered from the driver's seat, scanning the barren expanse. He wasn't wrong. The Harrat swallowed distance. Everything looked the same. Endless volcanic rubble, no markers, no shadows, just raw geology trying to pull you into disorientation. GPS was the only thing keeping us on any kind of path. Around 0900, Harlow's voice crackled over the comms, ordering a halt. We formed a loose circle with the vehicles, dust drifting around our boots as we stepped out. That's when I noticed it. The wind had died. In the desert, there's always at least a whisper of movement, some trace of air shifting across heat. But here there was nothing. Not stillness, silence, like the land itself was holding its breath. Alvarez noticed too. He stepped a few meters away, lifting binoculars, but he wasn't scanning for movement. "Sarge," he murmured, "look at the shimmer." I follow his gaze. Hate distortion usually dancing, bends light in chaotic waves, but this wasn't dancing. The shimmer pulsed, slow, rhythmic, almost like something beneath the rock was exhaling. "Quit freaking yourself out," Briggs called, though even he didn't sound sure. Harlow checked the tablet loaded with the container's last ping. Whatever command gave him had narrowed it down to a small radius, 200 meters. Close enough to feel like we were practically on top of it. He divided us into teams. Briggs north, Alvarez take 2 east, Keller your south. Every 15 minutes, radio check. Stay within sight of your vehicle. We mark it and regroup. We acknowledged and split. The rock crunched sharply under our boots, each step echoing faintly, like the field itself was amplifying sound. The 2 privates with me stuck close, rifles up, scanning the empty horizon as if something could pop up from behind the dead lava. 15 minutes in, my radio spat a garbled burst of static. Alvarez's voice bled through, but wrong, slow, stretched, like somebody dragging their fingers across a tape reel. "Kel, you, Kier, anything?" I keyed my mic. "Say again." You're cutting out. Nothing but static. And underneath it, a low vibration that rolled through my chest like distant machinery buried underground. It wasn't noise, it was resonance. One of the privates froze. "Sarge, what is that?" I didn't know. It wasn't jamming. It was like something was using the same frequencies as our radios, humming beneath the human range, as if trying to rise toward it. Then Bricks cut in, breathless. "Harlow, we've got visual. North side, grid 479. Container found." A pause. "Sir, you need to come see this." We rushed back, engines kicking up black dust as we converged on their location. And there it was, the container sitting in a shallow basin of cracked stone, 40 feet of metal half buried in volcanic rock, as if it had been there far longer than 3 days. Up close, it was immediately clear why Brick's voice had sounded wrong over the radio. The container wasn't just lost, it was out of place, out of context, of anything that made sense. The twin steel doors hung wide open, not dented or pried or blasted, just calmly swung outward as if someone inside had unlatched them and stepped out. But the strangest part wasn't the doors, it was the ground around them. The volcanic rock, normally sharp and fractured, had been smoothed in enormous circular grooves, spiraling outward like something heavy had dragged itself in widening arcs around the container. Not tire marks, not boot prints, not animal trails. Just perfect, fluid curves carved into stone hardened thousands of years ago. Harlow approached first, rifle raised, the rest of us forming a disciplined perimeter while he edged toward the entrance. I watched the moment his posture stiffened. His breath hitched. He didn't call out, didn't yell, didn't order us back. He just whispered my name and Delaney's, like he didn't want the air to hear him. We moved in beside him. The interior was almost pitch black, even though the desert sun should have illuminated everything. Light felt swallowed the moment it crossed the threshold. Our flashlights sliced through the darkness, revealing rows of bolted racks along the walls, empty. Completely empty. Whatever cargo had been transported in here was gone, removed with precision. But that wasn't the part that made my skin tighten. It was the temperature. The moment I stepped in, I felt the air shift from blistering desert heat to a refrigerator chill. My breath came out in fog. Condensation clung to the metal whorls in thick beads, freezing cold against the fabric of my glove when I touched it. Cold like winter steel, cold like something drawing all the warmth out of the container's interior. 42 degrees, Alvarez murmured as he checked his tablet, disbelief coating every word. This shouldn't even be possible. No power lines. No generators. Nothing connected to it. And it's colder inside than a walk-in freezer. Bricks moved deeper, peeling his light across the racks. These mounts weren't carrying food or supplies. Industrial restraints. Heavy grade. He touched one of the anchor points. Whatever was in here wasn't just stored, it was secured. Hard. I pressed my palm flat against the steel wall again and felt it. Not just cold, but that same low, almost subsonic vibration we'd heard through the radios. It thrummed beneath my glove, through my bones, like the entire container was resonating with some unheard frequency. Before anyone could process it, Harlow's voice snapped. "Everyone out, now." We backed out immediately, but stepping into daylight didn't warm anything. If anything, the air around the container felt colder than the inside, like heat refused to come near it. That's when Briggs, still covering the outer perimeter, shouted, "Lieutenant, movement, East Ridge." He pointed toward a jagged rise in the lava fields. At first, all I saw was wavering heat haze, but then something shifted within it. A shape, a figure. My brain tried to slot it into the category of human, but nothing matched. Not the height, not the way its arms dangled, not the angle of its head, which tilted to the side in a broken, unactual incline. "Is that someone?" One of the privates whispered. None of us answered. We didn't know what we were looking at. Alvarez lifted his binoculars for a clearer view, and the moment the lenses focused, our radios erupted in a shriek so sharp and high, I felt it punch straight through my skull. It wasn't static, not interference. It was a sound, deliberate, piercing, like something was screaming along our comms. Every man ripped his headset off, swearing, crouching, covering their ears. I looked back at the ridge, only to see the figure had moved, not approached, not walked, just appeared closer, like the space separating us had folded in on itself. "Mount up!" Harlow barked, voice cracking under the strain. "We're moving now." We scattered for the Humvees. I was the last in line, grabbing the door handle when instinct twisted my gut. I looked back one final time, and that's when I saw it clearly. The figure now hovered behind the container, only 50 feet away, suspended a few inches off the ground. Its body was paper white, not pale skin, not albino, but stark, absolute white, like bleached marrow. Its limbs hung lifeless and long, too long, and its head remained tilted to that impossible angle. There were no visible eyes, no face, not in the way humans understand faces, but the certainty that it was watching me, directly, hungrily, was immediate and suffocating. I threw myself into the vehicle. Brakes floored the accelerator before I even had the door fully shut. For 20 straight minutes, none of us spoke. None of us looked back. None of us touched the radios, afraid that sound, whatever it was, might return. When we finally stopped, Harlow's hands trembled as he fumbled for a cigarette. He never smoked on duty. He didn't care now. "We report the container's location," he said quietly. "Nothing else. If we tell them what we saw, they'll send us back." "Sir," I started, but he cut me off with a glare that wasn't anger, it was fear. "We don't mention that thing." He wasn't wrong. Every instinct in me screamed the same truth. Returning to that ridge meant dying or worse. But that night, lying wide awake in my bunk, I couldn't shake the sound from the radio, that oscillation, that pulse. The rhythm of it had been too structured to be random interference. It had been communication. A message, something trying to speak. And the worst realization came like ice settling in my bloodstream. Whatever we'd encountered hadn't been warning us away. It had been asking us something. The next morning, Command wanted answers we couldn't give, and soon we'd learn the truth far more chilling. We weren't the first unit sent into that desert, just the first that came back in one piece. They pulled us into a different kind of room for the debrief. No windows, no clocks, no insignia, just cold metal chairs and buzzing fluorescent lights that made everyone's skin look waxy. Two men in civilian clothes were already waiting when we filed in, both of them radiating that quiet authority you only see in contractors who operate in the shadows between agencies. The sort who don't introduce themselves because the names wouldn't mean anything. The older one, hair flecked with gray and eyes sharp as cut glass, sat across from Harlow, while the younger one leaned against the door, arms folded, watching us with an expression that suggested we were on trial, more than being questioned. "Work us through the recovery operation," the older man said, not requesting but commanding. Harlow delivered the sterilized version without blinking. We reached the coordinates, found the container with doors open and cargo missing, detected no forced entry, recommended further analysis. Clean, clinical. Devoid of anything that would make an incident report go radioactive. The contractor listened as if reading each of us rather than the words, and when Harlow finished, he leaned back with deliberate calm. "And the reason your unit withdrew without securing the site?" The silence that followed stretched tight. Harlow finally spoke. "Weather degradation, heat levels approaching unsafe thresholds." It was a flimsy excuse, but it was all we had. I kept my expression neutral, even as my stomach twisted at the sheer audacity of it, lying to men who clearly already knew we weren't telling the whole story. The contractor's gaze slid to me. "Sergeant Keller, you led the southern sweep. Anything to add?" Alvarez stiffened beside me. Briggs stared at the floor. Brakes didn't move except for the twitch in his jaw. I met the contractor's eyes, felt him peeling back layers like he was searching for the cracks. "No, sir," I said evenly. "Lieutenant covered it." He held my gaze a moment too long, then smiled. A thin, chilling smile that felt like a blade sliding across my throat. "Interesting," he murmured, "because Thurtle satellite data shows a 90-degree drop around that container. A 40-foot radius of abnormal cold in the middle of a desert." My pulse thudded in my ears. He knew. Of course he knew. Satellites could spot a rifle from space. They sure as hell could detect a temperature anomaly that drastic. The younger contractor finally spoke. "Also interesting, is that all 4 of your vehicle radios experience simultaneous malfunction at 0923 hours. Right when you withdrew. He stepped forward. Explain that. Harlow's control faltered. Environmental interference. Equipment failure. The older contractor slammed his palms onto the metal table. Don't insult us. We know what's out there. The fluorescent buzz seemed to vanish under the weight of that sentence. The question, he continued quietly, is whether you understand what happens if you talk about it. The threat wasn't implied, it was oxygen in the room. We accomplished the mission, Harlow said, voice low but steady. Recovered the location. That was the task. The contractor straightened. Good, because you're going back tonight with proper equipment and proper expectations. Sir, we can't, Harlow started, but the contractor cut him off. We're not asking, Lieutenant. The younger one stepped closer. The asset in that container is worth more than every man in this room combined. You will retrieve it, or you will explain to a court-martial why you abandoned it. They left us alone for 20 agonizing minutes, long enough for the air to thicken with dread. When we were finally released, the sun outside felt hostile, like it was exposing every fear we had tried to suffocate. Briggs caught up to me as we headed toward the barracks. Keller, we are not going back there, he hissed. We don't get a say, I told him. Like hell, that thing wasn't human. You saw it. His voice dropped lower. And those guys, they knew. They knew exactly what it was. He wasn't wrong, but soldiers don't get to choose which nightmares they return to. At 1400 hours, new gear arrived in locked black cases, handled only by the contractors, fingerprint access, no labels. When they opened them, my stomach tightened. This wasn't standard issue anything. The thermal scopes were far more advanced than what the Army used. The audio equipment had frequency ranges that dipped into levels you wouldn't hear without specialized training. And the weapons, those were the worst. Modified rifles with magazines full of strange crystalline-tipped rounds that shimmered faintly in the light. Specialized ammunition, the older contractor said. Effective against targets conventional rounds cannot neutralize. Alvarez picked up one of the rounds, turning it slowly like he was afraid it might burn him. What kind of resistance are we expecting? The contractor's face didn't move. The kind that predates your understanding. That should have been the moment we refused. That should have been where someone said no, or walked out, or demanded real answers. But they had us boxed in. Obey or lose everything. Obey or disappear under the weight of classified charges. By 1800, we rolled out again. 4 Humvees, plus 2 unmarked SUVs shadowing us from a distance, like wolves waiting for a wounded animal to drop. We didn't speak on the drive. What was there to say? The desert was already cooling unnaturally fast as we approached the site. By full dark, the temperature had plunged to levels that made no sense, 58 degrees and dropping. When we stepped out of the vehicles, the air tasted wrong, like cold iron. The container sat exactly where we'd left it, its doors still yawning open into a darkness that seemed thicker than before. The spiral markings around it had changed, wider, deeper, like something had spent the day circling it over and over in perfect, patient loops. And in that moment, standing there under the fading light, we all realized the same terrible truth. Whatever lived in that desert had been waiting for us to return. The container looked unchanged from the outside, but the moment we got close enough to see the ground around it, every one of us felt that pulse of dread tighten. Those spiraling grooves carved into the stone were no longer faint impressions. They were deeper, cleaner, as if something had traced the same circular path over and over, wearing the volcanic rock down like soft clay. Harlow set the perimeter fast, barking orders sharper than before, positioning the Humvees in a defensive arc with headlights pointed outward instead of inward this time, as if he already knew illumination wouldn't protect us. But darkness behind us would be worse. Thermal scopes were assigned, specialty rounds loaded with a delicate crystalline click that didn't sound like brass or metal, but something brittle and unnatural. Alvarez, Harlow called, "Get the sensors running. I want the full spectrum. If it breathes, we catch it." Alvarez knelt beside the equipment case, hands trembling as he unfolded compact receivers, tiny emitters, and that strange thin lens array that looked more like a piece of lab gear than anything found in the Army. I took Bricks and 2 privates and moved toward the container. The air grew colder with every step, a descending gradient of frost that made my breath turn to fog again. My flashlight cut through the open doorway, revealing the same racks, the same bone-deep condensation, the same unnatural stillness, and the hum, that low vibrating bass that wasn't a sound, but a pressure. It rattled in my teeth, threaded through my ribs, made it hard to think straight. Bricks crouched beside the anchor points and swore softly. "Look at this," he muttered. The steel here wasn't cut, scorched, or snapped. It had been pulled apart from the inside, metal curled outward, like it had been peeled by hands strong enough to ignore industrial-grade restraints. Before I could examine it further, the radio on my vest crackled. "Keller," Alvarez whispered, panic dripping through every syllable. "Unreading movement, multiple vectors. It's circling us." I stepped outside instinctively, sweeping my thermal scope across the perimeter. Nothing, only cooling rock, our body heat, and the rising moonlight. But I felt it, the same vibration we'd sensed before, but now it wasn't coming from one direction. It pressed in from all sides, as if the lava field itself had become a speaker for something buried beneath it. "Harlow," I started, but the radio detonated with the same oscillating shriek from before, only this time it was louder, stronger, so sharp it felt like liquid metal being forced into my ears. Men collapsed, headsets dropped. Even without the radio pressed to my head, the sound pushed straight into my skull like it was bypassing equipment entirely and going straight into the air around us. When it finally cut off, the silence that followed wasn't silence at all. It was a vacuum, a pressure drop that made my heartbeat sound like footsteps. That's when we heard them. Not boots, not animal movement. Something lighter, softer, like weightless steps brushing against stone in the places our lights didn't reach. And then, without warning, it stood at the edge of our illumination, not approaching, not emerging. Just there, like it had always existed in that patch of darkness, and we had only just turned our heads in the right direction. The Pale Watcher. That's what Briggs would call it later, because the name fit too well. A tall, white, elongated shape, with arms that hung too long, and a head that tilted in that impossible, broken angle. It watched us with eyes we couldn't see, but could feel carving through us like ice water. "Contact!" Someone screamed, lifting their rifle. "Hold fire," Harlow ordered, but fear had already cracked the ranks. Before he could finish, the thing shifted, didn't walk, didn't glide. It simply reappeared 10 feet closer, like space had folded to meet it. A single shot rang out. One man fired. The crystalline round arced through the air like a streak of pale light, hit the thing in its chest and shattered uselessly. It didn't flinch, didn't recoil. It simply cocked its head further, studying the impact like it was watching rain hit a window. Then chaos erupted. Weapons opened up across the line, dozens of crystalline rounds slicing through the night, each one sparking harmlessly off its surface. The entity didn't defend, didn't react. It simply stood there, letting us waste ammunition, letting us realize nothing we brought could touch it. Alvarez screamed into the comm system, "Contractors, come in! It's here! It's right in front of us! Our weapons aren't doing anything!" Static responded. Then, a cold, clinical voice, "Do not withdraw." Alvarez snapped. "Are you out of your mind? Are you out of your mind? We need..." Every radio in every vehicle died at once. Engines sputtered, coughed, and shut down. Headlights flickered out, plunging us into moonlit half-dark. The only illumination left was the pale glow of that impossible figure standing among us. We were abandoned, cut off deliberately, like someone needed to see what happened next without interference. The Pale Watcher shifted again, no movement, no transition, just instant relocation, until it stood directly in front of me. Close enough that I could feel the cold radiating off it like an open freezer door. Up close, the surface of its form looked wrong, not like skin or fabric, but like something between them. Smooth, featureless, absorbing light as if its body was an absence rather than a presence. It leaned toward me. One long arm extended, fingers unfolding with too many joints, reaching for my face with precise, delicate slowness. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. It wasn't fear freezing me, it was something else, like my body no longer belonged to me. Just as those fingers brushed the air an inch from my cheek, something slammed into me from the side. Bricks tackled me to the ground, knocking the breath from my lungs. When I rolled over gasping, the pale watcher was gone. No retreat, no sound, no trace. Just vanished, like a switch had been flipped. And all around us the engines roared back to life. We scrambled into the Humvees the moment the engines kicked back to life. No one waiting for orders, no one bothering to check comms. Pure survival instinct driving us to flee that cursed stretch of volcanic rock. Harlow barely got the words, "Nound up" out, before we were already inside, slamming doors, shouting confirmations, engines roaring as we tore across the Harrat terrain without formation or caution. Nobody looked back, nobody spoke. We drove like men who believed slowing down would mean dying. It wasn't until we were 20 or so miles out, far beyond where the radios had died, far beyond the cold radius, that our pace finally eased. The adrenaline crash hit hard. A hand shook. My chest ached. Someone was sobbing softly in the back seat until they managed to choke it down. Then Briggs whispered. It touched me. His voice trembled as if saying the words made them more real. We all turned. His face was ghost pale, eyes unfocused, staring at his own left hand. When it was close, when it reached for you, it brushed my palm. Just for a second. Briggs slowed the vehicle without thinking. Harlow ordered us to stop. Every Humvee came to a halt. We gathered around Briggs under the dead quiet desert sky. He held out his hand. In the center of his palm, a perfect right circle had formed. Smooth, colorless, almost luminous under the moonlight. Not a burn, not frostbite, not bruising. It looked like something had erased the pigment from his skin with surgical precision. I touched his wrist. Does it hurt? Briggs shook his head. No pain, nothing at all. His voice cracked. I can't even feel it, like it's not part of me anymore. The mark didn't fade on the drive back. It didn't change color or shape. It just sat there, impossibly clean, impossibly cold, a reminder that something beyond our understanding had made contact with one of us. When we rolled through the base gates, the contractors were waiting. Same suits, same emotionless eyes, same implication that they had known this would happen. The older one looked at Briggs's hand, nodded once, as if confirming a box on a checklist, then simply said, "Debrief, 0800. That was it. No concern, no warnings, no questions, just a scheduled interrogation. That night, I lay in my bunk again, sleep impossible. My thoughts kept circling back to that moment when the pale watcher had reached for me. Not the terror, not the cold, but the split-second flicker I'd seen on its blank surface. A shape, a pattern. Something trying to form meaning. For a heartbeat, I had understood it. Understood it in a way language can't describe. Not words, not images, a concept, raw and ancient, older than anything human beings were built to grasp. And the realization settled like lead in my chest. That thing hadn't been trying to kill us. It had been communicating, or warning, or maybe evaluating. The Harrat Desert wasn't just hiding something dangerous, it was hiding something primordial, something sentient, something with rules we had trespassed against without even knowing. And the contractors, those calm, unshaken shadows, they already knew. They weren't surprised, they weren't confused. They were studying us the same way the Pale Watcher had. Briggs's hand was proof of that. His mark wasn't random, it was intentional, purposeful. Before sunrise, we were escorted, not to the same interrogation room as before, but to a SIF, a lockdown chamber where classified conversations lived and died without paper trails. The contractors were waiting, more of them this time. Men in suits, one woman with NSA credentials, an Air Force colonel whose expression said he hated being involved in whatever this was. We took our seats, they took theirs, and then the folder was placed on the table, unmarked, thick, old. When they opened it, my blood ran cold. Photos, satellite thermals, audio signatures, and one degraded photograph from 1957, showing another team of soldiers standing beside a similar container in what looked like the same lava field. In the background stood a pale shape, arms too long, head tilted, watching. The older contractor steepled his fingers. What you encountered has existed there for far longer than any country's borders, perhaps longer than humanity itself. No one breathed, because suddenly it was clear, the Pale Watcher wasn't new. It wasn't unique, it wasn't a one-time anomaly. It was ancient, and we were not the first to meet it, not even close. The NSA woman was the first to speak after the photograph hit the table, her voice calm in a way that only made everything feel more unreal. She explained that in 1956, a joint US-UK geological survey had stumbled on something buried beneath the hardened lava, something metallic, perfectly shaped, freezing cold even in peak summer heat. When they attempted to excavate it, the first Guardian appeared, the same type of entity we had seen in the Harrat desert. The Air Force colonel added that every attempt since then, 6 in total over 50 years, ended the same way: unexplained equipment shutdowns, personnel reporting overwhelming fear or mental distortion, and sightings of that tall, pale figure standing silently on the periphery, like a sentinel posted at the edge of an invisible boundary. It hasn't killed anyone, the NSA woman clarified. Almost clinically, it could have. It chose not to. What it does is consistent. It warns. It observes. It repels. Brix leaned forward, his voice barely steady. Repels what? Us, or something else? The silence that followed was the kind where no one wants to be the first to acknowledge the truth. Finally, the contractor closed the folder and said, "The object under that rock is emitting a field, some kind of energy we can't categorize. It's not radioactive, not magnetic, not gravitational, but it expands, slowly, predictably. The Guardian's behavior suggests it's maintaining containment." The word containment hit like a punch. Alvarez swallowed hard. "You mean it's holding something in? Something worse than whatever the Guardian is?" The colonel exhaled through his nose, a sound that carried no comfort. 3 months ago, a minor seismic event fractured the lava above the object. The field shifted. That's why the monitoring equipment in the container had to be relocated. The automated guidance failed, likely disrupted by the field itself, and the container drifted too close. It all clicked in my mind like falling dominoes. The torn anchors, the missing equipment, the open doors. "The Guardian moved it," I said quietly. "It removed the sensors because they were a threat." The contractor nodded. "That's our leading assessment. It's not hostile, it's protective. Not of you, not of Jordan, protective of the object." "Whatever it is." Harlow finally spoke, his voice low and hoarse. "Then why let us go, twice?" "Because you weren't aggressive after initial contact," the NSA woman replied. "Once you understood you were outmatched, once you withdrew, you no longer posed a threat. The second time, once it demonstrated your weapons were irrelevant, you accepted the boundary. It allowed you to leave." Brick's voice cracked. "It's teaching us. It's teaching us." She didn't deny it. Instead, she brought up a screen showing a map of the region with dozens of red circles etched across it. "These are field detections over 60 years. At current expansion, the field reaches the outskirts of Oman in 80 years. 80 years. A lifetime. A blink." "So," Harlow said, "you're sending us in again?" "No," the contractor replied firmly. "You're done." He gestured to the stack of non-disclosure files placed neatly before us. "You will forget everything you saw, everything you heard, everything you think you understand. You will sign the documents. You will not speak of this to anyone, not family, not command, not each other. 25 years federal imprisonment for violations." My stomach twisted. We weren't being debriefed. We were being gagged. "And if we refuse?" I asked. The colonel stood, expression stone hard. "Then this is where you stay, forever. National security supersedes individual freedom in matters of existential threat." We were trapped again, only now the cage had fluorescent lights and federal signatures instead of a pale Guardian. They handed us pens. One by one we signed. My hands shook. I wondered how many signatures were layered invisibly under ours. Names of teams from 1956, 1973, 1989, 2004. Teams who had also seen the impossible. After the signing, they separated us. New assignments, new units, new locations. Scattered like debris from an explosion no one would ever acknowledge. I didn't see Harlow again for 4 years. I didn't see Briggs for 6. Briggs reached out once, confessing that even after the mark faded physically, he still felt it every morning, an icy pressure in his prong, a phantom reminder that something from that desert had left its imprint on him deeper than skin. I got out of the military eventually, did everything you're supposed to, school, work, normal routines. but normal felt like a costume I was pretending to fit into. Because once you've stood in front of something older than civilization, something that communicates through cold and distance and sound that bypasses language, ordinary life feels like a story you're telling yourself to stay sane. I spent years looking for scraps of truth, FOIA requests, obscure reports, whispered rumors from people who might have had experiences similar to ours, and I found patterns. Encounters in other deserts, in tundra, in volcanic regions, always the same. Strange energy readings, equipment failure, pale figures watching from distance, always followed by silence, always buried. Then, in 2018, an email arrived from an untraceable address containing a single declassified excerpt from 1962. The entity displays behavior consistent with artificial intelligence, but predates human technology by millennia. Recommendation: do not engage, do not attempt removal. Observation only. It may be keeping us safe. That was when I understood the truth they'd buried for generations. The Guardian wasn't our enemy. It was the last thing standing between humanity and something waiting beneath that ancient lava field. Maybe the strangest part of all of this is that after everything they tried to bury, after all the signatures and threats and relocations, the truth never stopped following me, not in visions or nightmares, but in small moments. Like static in the air, like the heaviness of a memory that refuses to stay quiet. Years after that mission, after we'd all been split across different commands and continents, after Briggs's paw mark faded into a barely visible ghost of itself, I got that anonymous email, the declassified note that hinted the Guardian might be shielding us from something far worse. And suddenly, the silence they demanded felt like the most dangerous part of all. I tried tracing the message, but it bounced across so many encrypted servers, it might as well have come from nowhere. Except, I knew better. It came from someone who had stood where we stood, someone who'd seen what we saw, someone who couldn't keep their own silence anymore. And the more I sat with it, the more I realized the contractors hadn't lied when they said the world wasn't ready. They were right. Most people walk through their lives with the comfort of believing humanity understands the universe, that science has cataloged the unknown, that the dangerous things in the world are human-made or at least human-shaped. But in that desert, under that ancient sky, with those spirals carved into stone and that impossible cold radiating like a heartbeat, we'd seen proof that our species was not the first, not the strongest, not even the most aware. There are places on this planet that were never meant for us, places that predate our claim to existence, places protected not by borders or governments, but by something older and far more capable than we are. The Pale Watcher, as Briggs named it, wasn't the threat, just the sentry, the boundary marker, the reminder, the thing keeping something else contained. And what chilled me wasn't its presence, but its restraint. It could have erased us effortlessly. It didn't. It chose observation, evaluation, a warning delivered to a species too small to understand the scale of what it was brushing against. I think about that every time I see a satellite photo of the Middle East, every time a news story mentions seismic activity in Jordan, every time some classified anomaly leaks onto obscure corners of the internet before vanishing. I think about the way the air froze around that container, the way the radio screamed in a frequency that felt like language, the way the Guardian appeared without motion, watching us with eyes it didn't have, communicating with an intelligence that didn't need a face. I think about the cold circle on Briggs's palm, the silent message it carried. The idea that the Guardian marked him not as prey, not as a target, but as someone who needed to understand a boundary line drawn long before our species walked the earth. Years later, during one of the unofficial reunions we weren't supposed to have, Briggs confessed he still felt a coldness in that hand, only for a few seconds each morning, like some distant signal pulsing through the memory of skin long healed. "It's like it's reminding me," he said quietly, staring past us into nowhere, reminding me that it's still there, that the boundary is still there, and he wasn't wrong. The Harrat al-Sham lava fields look empty on a map, just black rock and endless heat, but I know better. Beneath that hardened crust lies something that doesn't want to be discovered, monitored, or understood. Something the Guardian has stood watch over for thousands of years. Something that expands slowly, patiently, like a tide waiting for the right moment to rise. The government calls it containment. I call it mercy. And if there's one truth I carry after 12 long years of silence, it's this. The greatest danger isn't what's hidden in that desert. It's the human instinct to pry open doors without understanding what waits behind them. Some boundaries exist for a reason. Some secrets aren't kept to control us. They're kept to protect us. So, if you ever find yourself near the Harrat volcanic fields, under a sky too wide and too old, and you notice the temperature drop for no reason, or see a pale, motionless shape standing in the distance where no one should be, do what we did the second time. Leave immediately. The Guardian won't chase you. It doesn't need to. It just wants you to step away from a truth humanity isn't ready to survive. That's my story. The one they told me never to speak. The one I signed away under threat of prison. The one that's lived at the back of my mind every day since 2012. And if you're still here, still watching, still listening, then you know it's time. Hit subscribe, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and whether you've ever seen something you couldn't explain. Because stories like this don't end, they wait. And somewhere out in that vast black desert, under the ancient lava and the silent stars, the Pale Watcher is still standing guard over a secret older than civilization and warning us that some doors should stay closed forever. That's the truth we brought back from Jordan's forbidden desert, buried under threats, sealed under signatures, but burned into us forever. Some missions don't end when you leave the field. Some follow you home. And if you've made it this far, you're part of the few who now know what really waits beneath those black volcanic plains. If you want more stories the world wasn't meant to hear, hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, what time it is there, and whether you've ever felt something watching you when no one was around. Share this with someone who can handle the truth. Because out there, the Pale Watcher is still standing guard.